The Vanishing Family. It was early morning in the small town of Riverview when the police found the Miller family home completely empty. The front door was open, breakfast was still on the table, and the TV in the living room was playing a morning cartoon. But no one was there, no mother, no father, no children. Even their dog was missing. It was like the entire family had vanished overnight. The neighbors gathered outside, whispering in fear, as officers searched every corner of the house. There was no sign of struggle, no blood, no broken glass, just silence. Then, in the middle of the living room floor, an officer found something strange, a muddy handprint. But it wasn't from any of the family members, it was too large. Everyone who saw it knew something terrible had happened. Detective Sarah Collins, the lead investigator, stood in the hallway, studying the scene carefully. "People don't just disappear," she murmured. She walked through the room slowly, noticing how normal everything looked: laundry half-folded, toys scattered on the floor, and a cup of coffee still steaming. "Whatever happened," she said quietly, "happened fast." The strangest thing was that the family's car was still in the driveway. So where did they go? That night, the whole town was talking about it. The news called it the Vanishing Family mystery. Some thought the Millers had run away. Others whispered that they had been taken. Sarah didn't believe in ghosts or strange stories, she believed in evidence. But even she couldn't explain what she was seeing. Then came the first clue. When the police checked a traffic camera near the edge of town, they saw something chilling. At exactly 1:47 a.m., the Millers' house lights flickered, and a dark van drove slowly past. It stopped for a few seconds, then disappeared down the road. No license plate was visible. The next day, Sarah decided to visit the Millers' next-door neighbor, Mrs. Green. The old woman was shaking when she opened the door. "I heard something last night," she said. "I didn't want to say anything, but now I can't stop thinking about it." Sarah leaned in. "What did you hear?" Mrs. Green's voice trembled. It was a scream. A woman's scream. And then, nothing. Sarah felt a chill go down her spine. She checked her watch. "What time was this?" Mrs. Green said softly, "Right before 2 in the morning." That matched the time the van passed the camera. Sarah thanked her and hurried back to the house. Inside, she noticed something she hadn't before: a small trail of dirt leading from the back door to the basement. Slowly, she opened the basement door. The smell of damp would hit her nose. She flicked on her flashlight and walked down the stairs. Everything was quiet, until her beam landed on something that made her heart race. In the middle of the basement floor was a shoe. A child's shoe. She bent down to pick it up, and that's when she heard it, faint, distant, but clear. A soft knock. Once. Twice. Coming from behind the wall. Sarah froze. Her flashlight shook in her hand. Someone, or something, was on the other side. Then came a whisper. "Help us." And just like that, the knocking stopped. Detective Sarah Collins stood frozen at the bottom of the basement stairs, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The whisper, soft, trembling, and desperate, had come from behind the far wall. "Help us," it said again, fainter this time, as if the voice was fading away. Sarah gripped her flashlight tighter and stepped closer. The beam shook slightly as it moved across the rough concrete. There, in the far corner, she saw it, a thin crack running down the wall. She knelt, touched the surface, and felt cold air seeping through. Her instincts told her this wasn't just part of the foundation. Someone had built something here. She radioed her partner upstairs. "Mark, get down here. Now." Seconds later, Officer Mark Reed hurried down, shining his light around the basement. "What is it?" he asked, his voice low. Sarah pointed. "There's something behind this wall." Mark knelt beside her and ran his hand over the crack. "Looks like it's been patched recently," he said. "Get me a crowbar." They worked in silence, chipping away at the wall until a small hole opened. Dust filled the air. Sarah coughed and waved her hand. When the hole was big enough to peek through, she held her flashlight up and looked inside. Her breath caught in her throat. Behind the wall was a narrow hidden room. Inside, she could see 2 chairs, a small table, and a pile of clothes that looked exactly like the ones the Millers were last seen wearing. But the room was empty. No people. No movement. Just the eerie echo of dripping water. Mark's face went pale. What is this place? Sarah stepped closer, shining the light into every corner. Someone built this, she said quietly. Someone who didn't want anyone to find it. As they crawled through the hole, Sarah noticed marks on the floor, scratches, as if furniture had been dragged away. There were also fingerprints smudged on the walls. One of them was small, a child's size. They were here, Sarah whispered. They were alive. She turned to Mark. Get forensics down here. I want every inch of this checked. But before Mark could respond, they heard a loud noise upstairs, a door slamming shut. Both froze. Did you leave the front door open? Sarah asked. No, Mark said, already reaching for his gun. Stay behind me. They climbed the stairs cautiously, the wooden steps creaking beneath their feet. The house was dark now. The lights that had been on moments ago were off. The air felt heavier. Police! Mark shouted. If anyone's here, come out now. There was no answer, just silence and the sound of rain starting outside. Then a shadow moved in the hallway. Sarah caught it from the corner of her eye, a figure slipping past the doorway. There, she yelled. Both officers rushed toward it, flashlights cutting through the dark. They reached the living room, but the space was empty. Then Sarah noticed the front door, it was open again. The cold air rushed in, blowing the curtains. She stepped outside, scanning the yard. Her light caught a glimpse of something near the driveway, muddy footprints. 2 sets. Adult-sized. But they didn't lead away from the house, they led back toward it, circling behind. A sudden noise made Sarah spin around. The engine of a car roared to life from behind the garage. She ran toward it, shouting, "Stop! Police!" But as she reached the corner, the car sped off into the dark, tires splashing through puddles. She tried to catch the plate number, but the lights blinded her eyes. Mark ran out behind her. What happened? He asked, out of breath. Sarah pointed toward the road. Someone was watching us. Someone who didn't want us to find that room. Mark looked at her, worried. You think it was the person who took them? Sarah didn't answer. Her gaze went back to the house, where the basement light still flickered faintly through the small window. No, she said finally. I think it was someone who already knows where they are. She turned back toward the dark woods behind the house, her voice barely above a whisper. And if we don't find them soon, we never will. Just then, Mark's radio crackled. A voice came through, the officer stationed at the edge of town. Detective Collins, we found something near the old quarry. You might want to see this. Sarah and Mark exchanged a look. What is it? Sarah asked. The voice on the other end paused. A van. Black. Abandoned. The same kind of van caught on camera near the Miller house. Sarah's stomach dropped. She started toward the patrol car without another word. The rain fell harder now, the thunder rolling in the distance. Something deep inside her told her this was only the beginning, that the Millers weren't the only ones being watched. And as they drove toward the quarry, neither of them noticed the faint figure standing by the trees across the street, watching them leave, wearing a dark hood, and holding a child's shoe. The rain was falling harder by the time Detective Sarah Collins and Officer Mark Reed reached the old quarry. The headlights of their patrol car cut through the fog, landing on a black van parked crookedly at the edge of the gravel pit. The engine was cold. The doors hung open like someone had left in a hurry. 2 patrol officers stood nearby, their flashlights scanning the ground. One of them, Officer Daniels, walked over. We found it about 30 minutes ago, he said. No one inside, no signs of a struggle, but you'll want to see the back. Sarah followed him to the van's rear doors. Her stomach twisted when Daniels swung them open. Inside were 3 seats, 2 adult-sized, 1 smaller, and a blanket. But the blanket wasn't empty. There were bloodstains. Old, dry, but clear as day. Sarah stared for a moment, her breath short. "It's them," she whispered. Mark climbed inside, inspecting the floor. "Footprints," he said. "Looks like they struggled here. Someone must have dragged them out." Sarah nodded. "Check the area. They couldn't have gone far." The officers spread out, combing the quarry with flashlights. The rain turned the dirt to mud, and every sound echoed through the pit. Sarah's shoes sank into the wet ground as she followed a faint trail leading toward the trees. There, half buried under leaves, she found something, a family photo. It was the Millers. The same photo she'd seen in their living room, now smeared with dirt and rain. She wiped it gently and felt a lump rise in her throat. "They were here," she said softly. "They were trying to get away." Suddenly, Mark called out from a few yards ahead. "Sarah! Over here!" She ran toward his voice, heart pounding. He stood by a mound of rocks near the quarry's edge, shining his light into a dark opening beneath. "It's a tunnel," he said. "Freshly dug." Sarah crouched beside him. The air seeping from the tunnel was cold and damp. She shone her light inside, revealing muddy handprints along the walls, small ones, like a child's. "Do we go in?" Mark asked. Sarah hesitated, staring into the dark. "We don't have a choice." They entered slowly, crouching low as the tunnel narrowed. The deeper they went, the colder it got. The sound of dripping water echoed from somewhere ahead. After a few minutes, the passage widened into a small underground room. On the ground were scraps of clothing, a half-empty water bottle, and a torn piece of paper. Sarah picked it up carefully. Scrawled across it in shaky handwriting were the words, "He's coming back." Mark looked over her shoulder, his voice low. "Who's he?" Before Sarah could answer, a faint sound echoed from deeper inside the tunnel, a metallic clang, like a door slamming shut. Then came footsteps. Slow, heavy, getting closer. Sarah quickly motioned for Mark to turn off his flashlight. They pressed against the dirt wall, holding their breath. The footsteps stopped just outside the room. Then a beam of light swept past the tunnel entrance. Someone else had a flashlight. A man's shadow moved across the wall. Sarah gripped her gun, her pulse racing. The figure stood there for a long moment, then turned and walked away, the footsteps fading into silence. When the sound was gone, Sarah exhaled shakily. "We need to move. Now." They crawled back through the tunnel until they reached the surface. The rain had stopped, but the night felt heavier than before. Sarah stood, brushing mud from her hands, and looked around. "He knows we're close," she said. "He's trying to scare us off." Mark looked back toward the quarry. "You think he's still watching us?" Sarah didn't answer. Her eyes drifted to the tree line. She had a feeling he was out there, somewhere in the dark, waiting. Then her phone buzzed. It was a message from the forensics team at the Miller house. She opened it and froze. The text read, "Detective, we found something in the hidden room. A live camera feed. It's still running." Sarah's heart sank. "A live feed? From where?" she typed back. The reply came seconds later. "From a different location. It's showing a room, and there's someone in it." Mark saw her expression. "What is it?" he asked. Sarah turned to him, eyes wide. "I think we just found the Millers." But as she looked back at the dark woods and the van by the quarry, she realized something chilling. The person who had been watching them all along wasn't running away. He was leading them somewhere. And now, they were following straight into his trap. For more video, kindly like, share and subscribe.